They say family is everything. But what happens when the very people you love most betray you? For years I endured manipulation, humiliation, and theft from my own blood. I stayed silent, thinking forgiveness was the right path. But everyone has a breaking point. And when I reached mine, I didn't fight back with anger. I fought back with intelligence. This is how I got my revenge. I grew up in a poor but loving family. My parents weren't rich, but they raised us with discipline and respect. I was the eldest, which meant I carried a heavy responsibility. From a young age, I helped my father in the fields and my mother in her small store. But not everyone in the family valued hard work. My cousin Joel was the opposite of me. He was lazy, entitled, and greedy. Our grandmother spoiled him, always giving him money even though he never worked a day in his life. While I sacrificed, studied, and laboured, Joel coasted by, living off others' kindness. At first, I didn't mind. That was just Joel. But things changed when he started targeting me. It began with small things. When we were teenagers, Joel borrowed money from me, promising to pay me back after he found a job. He never did. Instead, he spread rumours that I was stingy and selfish, just to cover up his own irresponsibility. Then he started undermining me in front of relatives. At family gatherings, he mocked me for wearing old clothes, for still living with my parents, for working long hours at part-time jobs. "Why work so hard?" he laughed. "You'll never be rich. You're just a mule for other people." The others laughed with him. I smiled through the humiliation, but inside his words burned. As we grew older, the betrayals became bigger. When my father died, leaving behind a small piece of land, Joel manipulated my grieving mother into signing over the documents to him. He convinced her that he would take care of it for the family. In reality, he sold part of the land to fund his gambling. When I confronted him, he smirked and said, "Why are you so mad? It's just land. You can always earn more. Besides, you're too dumb to handle property anyway." That was the first time I truly hated him. Still, I tried to be the bigger person. I studied harder, found work in the city, and slowly built a career. I sent money home to my mother and younger siblings. I told myself, success is the best revenge. But Joel wasn't done with me. Years later, after I finally managed to start my own small business, Joel came crawling back. He pretended to congratulate me, acting like a supportive cousin, but his real motive was money. He wanted me to invest in one of his business ideas. I refused. I knew him too well by then. That's when the attacks began. He spread lies in the community, saying my success came from illegal deals, that I cheated people, that I abandoned my family. He poisoned relatives against me, turning them into his allies. At one point, even my own mother began questioning my choices because Joel whispered poison into her ear. And then came the final straw. One day, I discovered Joel had forged my signature on some loan documents, using my name to secure money from loan sharks. Suddenly, debt collectors were showing up at my door, threatening me for money I never borrowed. That was the moment I broke. For years I had swallowed his insults, endured his theft, and forgiven his betrayals. But this time, he had dragged my name, my business, and my entire future into danger. It was time for revenge. But I didn't want revenge through fists or violence. No, Joel was too slippery for that. If I hurt him, he'd twist the story and make me the villain. No, I had to outsmart him. So, I began to plan. I spent months gathering information. I tracked every scam he had ever pulled, every loan he had taken, every relative he had manipulated. I spoke to people quietly, old neighbours, ex-friends, even former girlfriends who had been tricked by him. And slowly, I built a picture of Joel's entire web of lies. Then I baited the trap. I approached Joel one afternoon with a smile. "You know what, cousin? I've been thinking. Maybe we should go into business together. I've got some investors looking for projects. If you've got a good plan, maybe we can work something out." His eyes lit up instantly. Joel was predictable. Dangle money in front of him, and he'd bite. Within days, he brought me a ridiculous proposal, a half-baked plan for a supposed construction company. I pretended to be impressed. "This could work," I said, "but we'll need full transparency." Investors want everything documented. Financial records, contracts, identification, the works. Greed blinded him. He handed over forged papers, fake numbers, even signed documents without reading them. Everything I needed he gave me willingly. What Joel didn't know was that I had recorded our meetings. I had witnesses. I had gathered evidence of fraud. When the time was right, I presented everything, not just to the investors he thought were real, but to the community, the family, and most importantly, the authorities. Joel's scams were exposed in the most humiliating way possible. The very family he had manipulated for years finally saw him for what he was. The relatives who once laughed at his jokes and mocked me now turned their backs on him. He was arrested for fraud and forgery, and when the police led him away, he looked at me with pure hatred. I just smiled, because for once, Joel couldn't lie his way out. But here's the cleverest part of all, I didn't keep the victory quiet. I made sure everyone knew the truth. I donated part of my earnings to rebuild the land he had stolen years ago, turning it into something useful for the community. People praised me, respected me, and finally understood who had been the real villain all along. Joel, meanwhile, was left with nothing. No money, no allies, and no reputation. And that was the sweetest revenge. Because I didn't just destroy him with anger, I destroyed him with his own greed. I used his lies to expose the truth. And in the end, he buried himself in the very pit he dug for me. So, if you're listening to this, remember, revenge doesn't always mean violence. Sometimes the smartest way to win is to let your enemy's own greed, arrogance, and cruelty do the work for you. All you need is patience. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you'd love to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next one. Your support means the world, and together, we'll keep sharing stories that inspire, entertain, and stay with you long after the video ends.